Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead on Porch Time today. And yes, I'm on a different porch today. I'm back on the original one. The cabin porch, the neighbor has decided to mow the yard this morning. And it's making a tremendous amount of noise over there. So I decided to just come back to the original porch here and do my porch time on the original porch. Now, I would have rather done it over there, but it is what it is, as the old saying goes. As I was thinking about porch time, I've really been reading a lot of y'all's comments on my porch times and some of the other videos that we're doing. And I'm coming to the conclusion that there's a lot of questions out there about living this lifestyle. And one of the biggies, let me say that here in the Deep South where we live at, is this relentless heat that we're in. I'm sitting here this morning, and it's already, the heat index is already, it's, I can show you my watch, it's 9:03 this morning, and there's a light breeze blowing, not much, but, I'm already at 98 degrees, and this is only the third or fourth day of summer here. And this is still June, guys. This kind of weather we don't have until late July and on into mid-August. And that's what really ramps the hurricanes up towards September, because September the 23rd is our peak time for hurricanes. And all that heat in the Gulf is what ramps us up. And because the heat is so early this year, I'm a little concerned about the hurricane season, which is going to bring me to where I'm at with porch time today. That living a homestead and lifestyle is all about choices. It's about the choices that we make will determine the events in our life as far as homesteading goes, as far as just other choices go. We all have choices. And there's so many people, I've been ragged over my whole life about the way I live, about why I do what I do, and the choices that I've made. And any of y'all who's followed me for any length of time knows I've told you about the 7 years that I've spent working 16 to 18 hours a day, 6 and 7 days a week, and not going anywhere, not putting any money on, not buying cold drinks, not going out to eat, not going to movies, and not traveling, not doing any of these things for that 7 years, but dumping every dime into my place so that I could pay it off. And I really got ridiculed bad about a lot of my family because of and friends. On the weekends, they'd say, come on over and let's do this or let's do that. We're going to have a barbecue. And I'm like, nope. For me to drive over there, it's going to be this many miles, and 60 cents a mile. It's going to cost me this much on my vehicle wear and tear and coming back. I analyze every little detail. And I told myself I can't do it. I said, because I'm trying to not spend any extra money. And they're like, well, we're paying for everything. And I told them, I said, but I still wear and tear on my vehicle. It's my time. My time is worth something to me. And for me to go sit and just shoot the bull, is a waste of my time. And I only have so long to live. And what I do with that time is my choice. And like I said, I got ridiculed bad for it for a long time. And I don't regret it. I really don't regret it. I made a lot of choices coming up with my kids. Some of them good choices, some of them bad choices. I learned along the way, with one child, and then made better choices maybe with the other child. I'm not sure. I think they probably both about evened out because they're both great girls. They're both very successful. They're standing on their own 2 feet. No problems whatsoever. So I feel like that they did good. And I made some decent choices during those periods of their life. Like I said, not all perfect, but some decent choices. And lots of people today, this lifestyle we're living with, and I didn't, like we talked about before, I did not really know this was called homesteading. that was a shocker to me here about 3 or 4 years ago. I found out that the way I live is called homesteading. I'm like, really? It's just life to me. It's the way I live. It's the way I survive. I've done this a whole life, even though I held a public. I worked in the public. I didn't hold a public job, but I worked in the public, running my own businesses and stuff like that. I never considered this homesteading. But I still made the same choices working as I did when I'm retired now. So choices will determine everything. Now, I slip around on YouTube. You know, I watch a few videos here and there of channels that I have no clue who they are. I just randomly hunt them up out of the blue. Matter of fact, most of them, unless I really like them, I don't even remember the names of the channels. Some of them have several 100,000 subscribers. Some of them have just a few hundred. It's all about content to me. I'll go through their video list and their playlist, and I'll look and see what kind of content they're putting out, and I'll look at their content. I may spend one whole morning when I look at my internet just on one channel, trying to figure out, you know, who they are, what kind of good, if they're good people, or if they're going to make it, you know, if they're putting out good content. And then I move on. If I like them, I'll subscribe to them. If I don't, I won't. I hardly ever comment. Very seldom do I comment on someone's video. But I do watch different videos. Now, I don't usually watch a lot of big channels because I'm more interested in the smaller channels and helping them than I am worried about somebody who's already made it, you know. So that's a choice I have. It's a choice I've made as me as an individual. Now, in the realm of speaking about choices, we need to consider some facts. If an LCE happens, or an EMP, or whatever, SHTF, however you want to call it, I don't like using that word. I'd rather use LCE. At my age now, I'm coming to some really startling facts about life. I guess I've always known the things that I'm thinking about and I'm going to talk about. I just never have really, taken them serious, I guess would be the way to look at it. Until events in my life took place. Now, I've been watching some YouTube channels that are way out in the wilderness because we are doing off-grid in this cabin so far. Wanda and I are spending lots of time over there, and even though it's not finished, we're spending a lot of time over there trying to figure out exactly what it is about this off-grid lifestyle that is so appealing. What's the uptakes? What's the downfalls to it? Is it something in the Deep South that can be done? And the answer is yes, it is something in the Deep South that can be done, but there will be a lot of suffering that goes along with it because of the intense heat that we have here. It's not about the cold, because the cold would be no problem, but the intense heat. Now, y'all watched our video here this past week. We showed you screenshots of our temperatures for just one day. Well, actually 2 days. Heat indexes of 125. Heat indexes of 121. Now, the 125 we didn't actually get because I saw that and it freaked me. And I was like, gosh, no wonder I'm burning up out here. And I went in, me and Wanda talked about it. Well, when we went to actually come up with a concept of screen shooting and putting it out there, showing my watch and the time and the date, and the, you know, it had done dropped to 121. And for me, 121 was like a mind blower for me. I was just like, whoa, because I'm sitting here now, sweat pouring down me. You know, I'm sure we're at 100 or better right now with the heat index. But the choice to live off grid, Wanda and I are going to do some videos on that very shortly. We're working on them here for YouTube. We've been doing a lot of stuff over on Patreon about the cabin, showing the build of it and things like that, what we've done, how we, putting it together. But we're going to start moving some of it over to YouTube, some of our talks about the cabin and about what we've learned about living off-grid here in the Deep South. And some of the pluses, some of the minuses to it, and what kind of choices do we need to make this a success? You know, or are we going to stay off-grid? Are we going to go with solar? Are we going to hook up to the electrical grid? You know, what are some of the things that we feel like that we're going to have to do? What's it going to cost us to have power run back there? What's it going to cost us for a solar system? There's choices. Lots of choices have to be made. And if we're back there, we're off-grid, and something happens to me or something happens to Wanda, then there's just one of us left, because I've actually lived that lifestyle. My wife and I lived here. Debbie lived here for many years, and then she got cancer and she passed away here at the house with me, and left me by myself, which was not a big issue until one day I started having some problems with my heart, and which I've always been perfectly healthy. I've never had a problem physically in my life. And I went to the doctor, and he told me, he says, well, you have PVCs and you have some tachycardia. And they tried working with me on several different things. Well, nothing's really worked. And so I still suffer from them today. But during that time, they gave me some medication to try. Well, I come home, I'm by myself out here, and during the day, everybody's gone, usually, because they all go to work. And I was here by myself, and I took the medication, laid down to rest. Well, when I woke up, I was in anaphylactic shock. My throat was swelling up, and I couldn't hardly speak. I couldn't hardly breathe. And I was out here in the middle of nowhere by myself, no neighbors around. And luckily, we had a landline. I was able to get the phone and dial it. I was keeping consciousness long enough to dial it and tell them, and try to get out of my voice that I'm in anaphylactic shock. Well, because it was 911, they had my address and they immediately came here. It took them a few minutes to get here, but when they got here, just in time to get me pumped full of Benadryl and to get me to a facility to get me taken care of. You know, the bottom line is this: had I not had that landline, if I'd have been on just a cell phone, and I had no signal, which we don't have here a lot of times, then I probably might not would have made it, because I was here by myself, and no telling when anybody would have found me in the house here, because most everybody works off, and very few people come around very often here. So I would have been gone for quite some time, and it would not have been a good situation. But I'm thankful. During that time, I had a really nice lady friend that helped with Debbie taking care of her, that when I was at the hospital, I could call her because I had to have a way home. And she came and got me and brought me home, because I have no kids who live right here where I'm at. They all live off, and it was just me. That's one scenario. Another scenario was that after Hurricane Katrina, all the cell towers were down for like 2 weeks, or more than 2 weeks. We were 26 days here without electricity. But the cell towers did come back up, I think, after 14 or 16 days, and there was no phone during that time. And the landlines would still work, but if you had a phone that was run off of electricity and you didn't have some sort of power source for the house, you weren't using the phone. Cell phones were useless unless you had a satellite phone, and satellite phones would work as long as you had them charged. So that was one of those things. If people got hurt after a hurricane like that, and you live way out like we do, and there's nobody around, and you got hurt, there would be no way to get to anywhere if you're by yourself, or if your spouse is with you and they can't handle you to get you in a vehicle. They can't lift you or anything like that to get you in a vehicle to get you somewhere. Then, you have to think about these choices that you make about where you're going to be in a homestead. Are you going to be by yourself, Are you going to have neighbors? I encourage people to have good neighbors, because good neighbors is worth their weight in gold. Neighbors that are around pretty much all the time. One of the things that we don't have here is neighbors that are around. Because like I said, most everybody goes off to work. We have a couple that's in and out, that's home a lot more than they used to be. But that's the thing I'm telling you about when you make these choices about homesteads. You have to determine. Everybody's like, well, I want to get off out by myself. I don't want nobody around. I want me and my family to be in the middle of nowhere. I don't want to look at a house, a neighbor. I don't, it's got its pros and its cons. But the older you get, the more cons it has than pros. Because let's talk about the Great Depression for just a moment. After the Great Depression, most of the rural people, not most of them, but lots of them, moved to the cities. Why? Because in the cities was jobs. In the cities was food banks and soup kitchens and all this kind of stuff. People could survive, and they came together to survive. The difference between then and now, or some of the differences, should I say, is that then people were of a survival mentality. They weren't really like yang against one another. They could get along. Secondly, most of the jobs were American jobs in American factories. Very few things was done out of the country. Thirdly, people would work with you. There wasn't all these EBT cards and all this kind of stuff. People truly had to learn how to survive. They didn't go ballistic and try to rob everything in the store because they didn't get their way or their card didn't work. It's a different mentality of people then than they are now. Now, the problems with the cities is most of the jobs are across the water. They're overseas. Most jobs are high-tech jobs now. There's no really physical labor jobs that much because the factories are pretty much gone. There's a few still around. But, you go to a city now, it's not safe anymore. If you had to sleep on the street, some gang or some thug is going to probably try to knock you in the head and take anything you got. And so it's a total different mentality. Nobody cares about you in cities anymore. Most people don't even know who their neighbors are. And so we have to look at what happened during the Great Depression. What's the differences between then and now? What kind of choices do I need to make in my life that are sound enough that I can survive? Now, I'm going to tell you, Wanda and I, in our age, living out like we live, and the economy headed where it's headed, and the food system headed where it's headed. Talking about the food system, that was another thing that I was going to make mention of a while ago, talking about people in the Great Depression. When they went to the cities, there was food in the cities because there was still a lot of food being raised at that time. Matter of fact, there was a surplus of food at that time. And people knew they could get it if they went to the cities. What we're going to be facing in this country, if you try to go to a city, is going to be a lack of food because our country is on the negative side of the food system now. And we're not doing good in that area. So I was going to throw that back in there. But, Wanda and I being here where we're at, we could survive for a while because we've really been sitting down talking about this. This is something that's really striking home to us with our health, with the heat and everything going on like it is, the failures we're having with gardening now. I don't know I'm trying to be honest, guys. I've done a lot of research on this. I don't know in the world that we're headed into to 2030 if it's going to be possible for a husband and wife to survive long term. And I say that because if something happens to one of them and they have to care for the other one, then there's nobody to do a garden. There's nobody to tend animals. There's nobody to process food. I'm coming to this realization really quick, and it's really causing me personally to think things through a lot more carefully than what I've been thinking through. The military, let's just use the military for instance, they never send out 1 or 2 people by themselves. They always send a team out, because if you send a team out, everybody has everybody's back. Well, a husband and wife may be a team, but they're just 2 people. And if one of them's down, then the other one has no strength. So I began to look back into history, and I realized that people had huge families. They'd have 10 and 15 kids in a family. And usually more than one family lived on a piece of property. They realized then that just one family was not going to be able to make it on their own. You've got to have others. And that's one thing that we're really looking at here at Deep South Homestead, is the fact that we're going to have to make some choices in the future about our future and our survival heading into a time when into a solar minimum. We're going into an eddy minimum, and the lack of food that there's going to be is almost frightening. I talked about on one of our programs the other day that I was doing. We went to the feed store the other day, and the price of feed has already went up $1 a bag just on one type of feed, and they said they're having to lock in prices now for this fall, or it's going to go way higher. So they're locking in prices. They're going ahead buying it all up, and they're storing it, which is a little concerning here in the South, because lots of times when you store grains and stuff, they'll mold because of the humidity and the heat that we have. But this is stuff that the feed stores are telling me. You know, they're having to. It's kind of like when you buy gas in the summer. For the winter months, you pay a summer price. You know, you go ahead and buy it in advance, because that way the companies can go ahead and stockpile all this gas up to make it through the winters. It's the same thing they're saying with the feed now. I'm watching lots of videos about they're planting soybeans now with planes through it's called firing them into the ground. They're actually shooting them down, and the seeds are hitting the soil because it's damp, and forcing them underneath the soil to actually come up and grow their soybeans, because the fields are just too wet to get in. And guys, I'm not a fearmonger. I'm a realist. I've talked to you about this for 3 years. A lot of people kept telling me a couple of years back, even up until here just this past year, people were telling me, see, nothing's happened. You're saying all this stuff and nothing's happening. But then this year, a lot of people have come back and said, wow, you've been right all along. This is coming. And I don't never say yes or no. I mean, I'm just like, well, you know, try to get yourself in a better position. Try to really prepare. Try to make the right choices. Guys, I'm telling you, I'm afraid that a lot of choices that a lot of homesteaders are making are not good choices. I'm not trying to say that everything everybody's doing is wrong, because we are coming to the realization that a lot of the choices that we've made are not going to work. That's why I told you all here a while back that there's changes coming to Deep South Homestead, because without these changes, we won't make it. You know, and everybody's always said, I've had guys with special forces say, you know, if anybody in this world is going to make it, it's going to be you, Danny, because you're the one who knows how to make it. And I probably would, but the bottom line is this: if I don't change with what's coming and make good choices, it doesn't matter how good I am at what I do, I won't make it. So I'm saying that to say, let's be wise about the choices we make. Let's not be so belligerent and so prideful that we make foolish decisions because we think we're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Because let me tell you, I live that lifestyle. I've been of that mentality for years. I've survived through a lot of hard things. I've had to learn how to walk 3 different times in my life. I've almost been killed on 3 different occasions, and I didn't think I would live, but I pulled through. So I know what it is to be that close, but without the help of others, it would have been very difficult, and I would have. I'm not sure I would have made it. So that's what I'm telling you is, guys, we got to have each other. That's why Wanda and I have always told y'all we're trying to build community, and we want good community. I'm not interested in people that are hot-headed and know-it-alls and all this kind of stuff, because I don't know it all, and neither does anybody else out there. It's all about making good choices. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to fail at some things that we do. Some of them we're going to fail miserably at. Some of them we'll just have minor pitfalls in. Some of us will end up disabled. And if we're not prepared for that disability, then we're screwed. So we've got to really take into consideration the worst case scenarios and then build toward that. Not that we're afraid, but just that it just makes good, wise, sound wisdom to make good decisions while we have time to make good choices. Because, guys, once an LCE happens, whatever choices you're going to make has already been made. And you're going to have to live with the choices that you've made at that time, because there won't be a lot of room for changing a lot of things at that time. It'll just be surviving and trying to figure out what you can do, when you can do it, and how you can do it. And, I'm trying to be careful about the words I use, because I don't want to tick a lot of people off. At the same time, I want to be clear and straightforward with you, because in the next year, I see some massive things happening. And I guess Porch Time today is about start making good choices now, because the time is running out when we have time to make these choices. So, guys, I really appreciate y'all. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to sit here with me this morning. I'm soaked. This shirt is completely soaked. I'll probably have to change it. But you know what? It's life where I live at. It's a choice I've made, and I'm okay with it. So make sure you're okay with the choices that you make. And thank you guys for watching us here at Deep South Homestead.